Good afternoon, teacher candidates. So this is a quick video just to provide some updates and some clarification about some material that I've posted that's really logistical in nature on D2L, and then a little bit of feedback that I'll share overall in terms of your teaching work. So just some logistic pieces. If you look at the entry for lesson observation, conference, and reflection 2A and 2B, so those are coming up. Your second set of formal observations by me are coming up soon. You'll notice a couple of documents in those boxes, two documents and one assignment. First of all, you have the same intensive clinical experience lesson plan template that you'll need to complete for your observation, and obviously provide that hard copy for me when I arrive for me to follow the lesson. And in addition, I've created a formal observation schedule. I named it formal observation number 2 time slots revised. So download that document and you'll look at that assignment and double check to make sure that that schedule works for you. The next round of observations will be on October 18th and then on November 1st. So in this new schedule, I've just plugged in some slots according to the schedule that you provided for me for your observations and then for your Zoom conference. I've tried to schedule your Zoom conferences during the day when you have a prep period, and I recognize that people have varying accessibility to use Zoom. So obviously if Zoom doesn't work, then we can use FaceTime. You all have my cell phone number, 610-750-0949. We could also use Skype, and you could use that on your phone as well for that. Have a little bit of face-to-face time for your observation conference. And I'll talk a little bit more about the context for that conference and give you some feedback on that in a few moments. And then finally, you have an assignment, which is it's called an Evaluations and Schedule Confirmation number 2. So you'll see the instructions for the evaluations component. Your classroom teacher educator should have completed at least 1 and hopefully 2 in-progress formative observations so far, and used that hard copy chart to fill out their evaluation. So I'm asking you to upload those evaluations, 1 or 2, to this assignment box. And then secondly, I'm asking you to review the schedule for the formal observations with your classroom teacher educator, and confirm that that observation and that Zoom conference time works for you. And then if not, to provide 3 alternative days and times that are during that week that might work for you. If for some reason that the October dates, the October date or the November date don't align with your schedule for whatever's happening in your classroom. So just to reiterate, if you go to lesson observation conference and reflection 2A or 2B, you'll see the identical sets of documents and assignments. Lesson 2A is if you have the first slot, which is October 18th, and 2B is for the November 1st date. So that is one set of logistical information. Secondly, many of the classroom teacher educators that I visited all of yours, obviously, and they've expressed to me that they needed some clarification around how they conduct your evaluations and when they should conduct them and what format that they should use, and sort of all of these questions. And you know that one of the things that's very important for me is to make sure that you all have clarity around some of these expectations. I've explained to the classroom teacher educators that sort of all of those details are actually now handled through the Office of Clinical Experiences. You know, they've sent out those emails, they've sent out the task stream accounts, they've sent out the forms that they're supposed to use. But because folks still had some questions, I created a document called Classroom Teacher Educator Guidelines, and met with the Office of Clinical Experience, in particular our Associate Dean, to make sure that just to basically create a table and to make sure that everybody's clear on what the expectations are. So the classroom teacher educator should be completing 3 observations sort of prior to around this week, between week 2 and week 6, and then the mid-semester evaluation, and then another 3 observations with evaluations between weeks 9 and week 13. And in between those 2 sets of observations, a mid-semester evaluation and a final observation. This is a lot of detail. So to make all of this clear, I created a chart so that everything is clear in terms of what is completed on paper form and what is completed via task stream. And so what I'd like you all to do, what I'm asking you to do is as soon as possible, print this document out. I created this document in collaboration with our Associate Dean, Dr. Picorni Golden. So she verified that sort of all of these guidelines align with her expectations relative to the clinical office. So what I'm asking you to do for this, and this is explained on D2L as well, is to print the document out, give it to your classroom teacher educator, and if they have questions about their expectations in terms of your evaluation and where documents go or how to log into TaskStream or any of those questions, then they should then contact Dr. Picorni Golden, and I've provided in the description for this assignment and on the assignment itself her email address and her phone number. And her phone number will obviously get to the administrative assistant there, Ms. Faust, to clarify any questions around this process. A part of your assignment for your evaluation and schedule confirmation is to upload the evaluations that your classroom teacher educator has done to date. So you'll notice that is in the directions for that assignment. So again, my expectation is that they've certainly done 1, if not 2 at this point, and soon they'll need to be completing their midterm evaluation. So again, all of this is explained in different components on D2L under the Lesson Observation Conference and Reflection 2A, and then repeated again in 2B. So that should clarify the logistical components that I needed to share with you to date. In terms of your teaching, it was a pleasure visiting your classrooms this week. I'm so excited about your work with students across the board. One fundamental aspect of your practice that I've observed for everyone are these great relationships and rapport with students that you've already developed. I'm so happy to see that. I think that's sort of the beginning of what Gloria Ladson Billings would say is just good teaching, right? To have fostered those relationships with students early on and have that reciprocal respect happening between the two of you all, and with you and the group of students. So that's some general feedback, and then you all have received individual feedback through the submission of your reflection assignments. One thing that I would say for everyone is to make sure that they attend to 3 domains in their lesson plan, and those are your accommodations, your modifications, and your formative assessment. So again, when we're thinking about differentiation, and we talked about this at length in our course in the spring, what are your specific accommodations for the learners in the classroom? You should know your learners well. So what does that look like? I mean, that should be outlined in detail. And my expectation is the next lesson should be detailed. You can include a chart that has the first names of students and what your plan is for that period, and the modifications that you need to provide for those students. We should have those anticipated and spelled out at length. So take as much space as you need to specify what that looks like. That's the heart of differentiated instruction, and it's absolutely necessary that's really clear, and that in your planning, and that also shows up in your teaching with students. So when I come to observe, and not just when I come to observe, but every day. And secondly, your formative assessments. So your formative assessments answer the question, how do you know what students understand at the end of the lesson? So you have a learning objective. What is your evidence for student understanding of the learning objective, whether it's a concept or whether it's a skill, or whatever combination of the two of those things? What does that look like? And in your next set of reflections, I'm going to be asking you to articulate what that student work looks like and provide evidence of student work. So we're really thinking specifically about how you're demonstrating what data you've collected about student performance. And it doesn't mean that everyone understands. It doesn't mean that everyone's performance is perfect. It means that you've collected the necessary data to make decisions to inform your practice for the following day, right? So you teach a lesson. How do you know what students know? It's through that formative assessment that needs to take place within that lesson. So you notice on D2L there are several resources in the resources column, including conferences, exit slips, questioning techniques, and your documentation of those practices that can inform how you know that you've achieved the learning objectives for that particular lesson. The last thing I'll say, and I'm going to say it again in a subsequent video, but in terms of your reflections, I want to make sure that you have a text for the course that I've said to all of you that you're using as a reference piece. I'm not assigning particular readings per day. You're going to use that text as needed, but all of those areas are going to emerge or have emerged already in terms of your feedback that I've provided you with, or your classroom teacher educator has provided you with. So my expectation is that in subsequent lessons that you cite this text using APA format, so we're still remembering and recalling our academic writing skills. So we're using APA format in the social sciences. You're using that text as a reference point to discuss how you're moving forward, or how you've made decisions about your teaching for that particular lesson, and any other resources that I add to D2L for you to utilize. You're making sure that your reflections, again, align with our expectations for academic writing. So Times New Roman font, a header at the top of the page, double-spaced, a page number. So still, you're professional educators and you're in the social sciences. You are graduate teachers, graduate teaching candidates, and your graduate students. So you're writing should still demonstrate those professional norms for our field. And finally, just to go back to your lessons, your formative assessment piece, to make sure that you include those. I just want to underscore that again because the student work component is going to be a major part of my evaluation of your second observation. So what is your evidence? So make sure as you talk with your classroom teacher educator that you're mindful of how you're designing your data collection for assessment of student learning for round 2 of your observations. I think that is all for now. You all have my cell phone, you have my email address. You can contact me, or we could still either meet in person or meet via Skype to discuss any questions or any concerns that you have about anything regarding your intensive clinical experience for this semester. So please do not hesitate to contact me, early and as frequently as necessary so that I can best support you in this process. I look forward to hearing back from you. Oh, and there's dates that are included for all of this material. So be mindful of that, and this should emerge when you look at your upcoming events when you log into D2L. Be mindful of checking in and looking at your feedback, and make sure that you're submitting your work on time. A part of that is your APPD grade, which is attendance, preparation, participation, and dispositions. So make sure that you stay on top of deadlines for completing assignments or sharing information. We need to keep those lines of communication open, and I have to support all 9 of you. So I'm trying to work around my schedule and make you all priorities as well. So us talking and being organized and doing things in a timely manner is integral to the success of this intensive clinical experience. Okay, happy Saturday. Have a good week coming up, and I will see you in person and virtually. Take care.